what is the best salt to use when you're at home? Should you use the kosher salt, the iodized salt, or the various sea salts that you find over at the stores? So let's talk about each one. Kosher salt is something that is typically not an iodized salt, so there would be no extra iodine in there. And the granules, the actual crystals of the salt, are typically much larger, which makes it preferable for chefs who are going to be grabbing salt and kind of sprinkling it throughout their cooking process. Because of that, there is less sodium per volume. So what that means is if there's bigger salt crystals, it actually takes up more space as you go and scoop it. So it has about half of the sodium per quarter teaspoon as a thinner, smaller crystal found in like the iodized salt. So keep that in mind. But if you do grind your kosher salt or get a finer crystal, it has just the same amount of sodium. Now when it comes to iodized salt, basically you take a salt crystal and they refine it, they process it, they extract all of the basic minerals, the trace minerals that are found in the salt, and then they're adding extra iodine to it because it was found that many people weren't getting enough iodine through their food. Now with that process, they also are adding a lot of anti-caking and anti-clumping additives to the salt so that when you go to pour it, maybe with cooking or baking, it has that free-flowing kind of texture to it. Additionally, the iodized salt is going to be a pure white, and that actually can come through bleaching the salt crystals. Whereas when you look at a pure sea salt, something like a Himalayan sea salt, they're typically going to be a color, and these are salt crystals that are dried out from the natural seawater, and they're going to retain some of those trace minerals from the sea. That gives them that unique color, and they're often found in these bigger crystals as well, and that's because they're not adding any anti-clumping agents to it. Otherwise, the salt would just really clump together and be really soft and mushy, and you wouldn't get a nice crystal when you're applying it to your food. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you may see something like this, something that appears like a sea salt and it's advertised as a sea salt, but notice how it's pure white. That can indicate that the manufacturer actually took the salt and did process it in some way and then just labeled the container as a sea salt. So just keep that in mind, that a real natural sea salt should be discolored and should have, kind of uniform crystals, and sometimes can clump together, but that's a completely normal experience to have with the salt. So at the end of the day, you can pick which salt you prefer. I do go for the sea salt. It does have some trace minerals in it, things like magnesium, calcium, selenium, things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm more concerned with your overall sodium intake and making sure that that's within balance. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to some additional questions.